Men often need a refractory period after the ejaculation. But when you don't ejaculate, but you allow your body to experience these higher levels of orgasmic energy without ejaculation, then your energy keeps rising. You're not losing any energy, but you're able to continue to make love for as long as you like, and the energy can keep rising and rising indefinitely. Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Nitya Malin. So today I want to talk to you about why ejaculation choice is such a game changer for men and their partners, and how come you may not yet have cracked the code to this. So first of all, to clarify what I mean with ejaculation choice. So we often hear the term PE, which is short for premature ejaculation, which is the clinical definition for when a man is only able to last a few seconds or up to a minute during sex. So I don't particularly like the word PE, but I'll still use it. I prefer ejaculation choice, but PE is easy to say, so I will still use that. But what we're talking about here is not just about how long a man is able to last in minutes or seconds, but it is much more about whether it's a choice or if it just happens beyond your control. So let's say a man could last, for example, for 15 minutes every time he has sex, but then for some reason or the other, he ends up ejaculating involuntarily when he gets to around that point of time. So what I'm referring to today in this video is when, as a man, you have developed your ability to have a full ejaculation choice, which means you can choose when to ejaculate and when not to. So first of all, I want to talk about the attributes and the personality and the beliefs of men who struggle with PE. So I've worked for 10 years with men with these kind of challenges, and I've accumulated a bit of experience and some insights in regards to what kind of commonalities that the men have who struggle with this. So this is obviously general. It doesn't apply to exactly everyone, but it's very likely to be something here that you can recognize if you have been struggling with this kind of thing. So the attitude and the beliefs of a man who struggles with PE often gives us clues to why he's struggling with this challenge in the first place. So PE doesn't just have to do with one thing, but it's a combination of different things that build up over time. It might start with one factor, and then you develop other contributing factors that end up keeping you stuck with these symptoms. So let's say it might start with a sensitivity in your energy, where as a man you get overwhelmed with your sexual arousal, and this could be due to trauma or conditioning, where sex was something that was not allowed or shameful perhaps. So it can often be the case that a man feels nervous and anxious as soon as sexual arousal starts to build in his body. And when that happens, by default, he starts to contract and try to clamp down on that sexual energy rising, and he tenses up in his body and he starts to feel nervous. So this in itself is going to make premature ejaculation more certain than if he is relaxed in his body, and if it's not tensing up, and if it's not feeling nervous and anxious but relaxed instead. So men with this kind of sensitivity, where they get anxious when sexual arousal starts to build, will, for that reason, easier be in the category of men who will struggle with this. And we're also looking at here what kind of thinking, what kind of beliefs that he carries about himself as a lover, about himself and women and relationships and his body and who he is as a man. So these kind of beliefs may or may not have been there from the start. They often are, because our core beliefs develop from the age 0 to 7. So beliefs like, I'm not good at this, or I probably will fail, or I probably will muck this up, or I probably will come too soon, or she doesn't like it, or she probably doesn't like me, or I'm not good at this. All of those kind of beliefs and things that we tell ourselves contribute to cement this situation into your reality rather than opening up the possibility for something new to happen. So, and this is completely human nature, and this is valid for all of us and in all different areas of life. If we have been struggling with something for a while, we naturally tend to start to build up beliefs around that thing, telling us that this is difficult, this is hard, I'm not good at this is tricky, this is impossible, for example, or all those kind of things. And that in itself then starts to make us closed in on the current situation. So with the men with PE that I've met, in most cases, they seem to have a collection of beliefs about the situation, telling them that they're not good at this and that it's very difficult, that it's impossible, in fact. And when this happens, you start to identify as being a man who has this kind of challenge. And the way our subconscious mind works, when we develop an identity that becomes ours over time, then the subconscious will do everything in its might to keep us within that identity. And whenever we try to do something that goes against that identity belief, it will stop us. It will effectively put spanner in our wheels and make it impossible for us to do something different and to have a different experience. So this is something to really look at if this is something that is, applies to you. To look at if you're seeing yourself as a man who has PE and whatever that means to you, whatever comes with that, whatever that leads to. So this is why if we want to change something, it's not just about doing something differently. It's also about starting to allow ourselves to grow and expand into the version of us that doesn't have that problem, but a person who is completely free of that particular issue, for whom it's easy to last as long as he wants in bed, for example. So for the men who struggle with these things, we have those aspects that I feel are often missed in the mainstream discussion about premature ejaculation, where men are often given, quick tips, just do this, just try that, and it's often like one thing. And this leads to that men get disillusioned when it comes to overcoming PE, because in most cases, no one thing is going to fix it, because there's a few contributing factors that have developed over time, and we need to look at this from a full and whole perspective if we're going to change it. So I find these things that I've just mentioned are really important to start looking at first. Like, what are your beliefs in regards to being able to last in bed? What are you telling yourself about it? And who do you see yourself as when it comes to a man and a lover? Do you see yourself as capable and potent and able to, naturally excel when it comes to lovemaking and intimacy and sexual experiences and sexually expressing yourself as a man? So those things are important to ponder and look at when we start wanting to explore change in this area of your life. And the next thing that's also important here is, of course, your sexual habits. So most often our sexual habits are, let's say, how we do sex, whether it's self-pleasure or whether it's sex with a partner, is of course very important, but it's often something that we miss because most people have assumed ideas about what normal sex is and what it should look like and how you do it. And most people approach sex more or less the same way every single time they do it. So if the way you're having sex currently is getting you to the point of involuntary early ejaculation, then it's important to look at how you are actually approaching the sex act itself. And for a man who may or may not be be masturbating regularly, this is where it starts. It's how you connect with your own body. Like, do you do it in a fast way? Do you do it with porn and distractions and fantasy? Do you do it in a rushed and hurried way? Is the ejaculation always the goal when you self-pleasure and have sex with a partner, for example? So this is very important to look at, because if the way you're doing it right now, let's say when you're with a woman, you're trying very hard to make her come, but at the same time, you're trying to hold back and make sure that you're not going to get there before her, then you have quite an impossible situation there. So this is why it's so important to actually start to work with a lovemaking approach and a self-pleasure approach that is going to support you to last as long as you want. And this is something that I go into my programs with men and my coaching, where in a big way, we approach these in a way that's very much relaxed, very much slow down, very much about dropping and letting go of the goal orientation when it comes to sex. So the next thing I want to talk about now is, why would you want to have an ejaculation choice in the first place? Like, isn't just reaching orgasm the reason why we do it? So, why don't we just want to head there?
Hello there. In the last 10 years, I've been working with men, specifically supporting them to overcome challenges like PE, ED, DE, porn addiction, and low libido. In my sessions and online programs for men, I help men connect deeper with their natural and authentic and relaxed sexual aliveness by connecting deeper with their own hearts, bodies, thoughts, and emotions. So this is not about performance or superficial quick tips and tricks, but it's all about allowing the part of you who is already a natural, relaxed, and confident lover to be unleashed. Check out the show notes below to find out about my online program, Unleash Your Love, the code to intimate capacity, as well as my free audio transmission, Untapped.
So, a lot of men who have managed PE for maybe their whole lives already have usually become very good at compensating for this challenge. So they learn to be very good at foreplay and taking care of their woman, and they make sure that they meet her needs in every way, before and after, etc., which is a great thing in itself. However, what I want to share here is that when a man is, settling for involuntary early ejaculation, let's say he's not choosing to consciously work on extending his ability to last and have full ejaculation choice, he is missing out, and his partner are missing out on some very incredible dimensions of the sexuality that you won't necessarily discover as long as you stay in this experience of early involuntary ejaculation. So what happens when you are stuck in this pattern where the sexual energy is always building until you get to the peak where you're forced to release, and then you might go again, you get to the same point and you can't hold it in anymore, and you only ever get to that first level of sex. And I've talked about this before in my videos as well. So that first level of sex is really just the first level. So when you start to learn to have an ejaculation choice, you start to open up to higher dimensions of sexual pleasure, both for yourself and with your partner, because sexual energy takes time to grow and expand. But for men who are stuck in this pattern, one of the reasons why this is happening, in addition to the reasons I mentioned already, is because sexual energy gets trapped in the lower parts of your body. So the lower parts of your body around your genitals and your abdomen is quite a small space. And when sexual energy starts to build and you become aroused, that area fills up with this kind of potent, hot, wild energy, as I'm sure you've experienced. And many men describe this as something that becomes quite unsettling, almost feeling like a pressure cooker in the groin, and that it's, they can't think about anything else. They feel frustrated and they feel the need to release. So this is a symptom of the fact that the sexual energy gets trapped in a small part of the body. So something you can do here is to start to change this, is start to train your body to hold larger amounts of aroused energy with your whole body. So this means relaxing the body and relaxing the muscle armor that's contracting the energy in that small part of your body, and allowing the energy to expand into the whole rest of your body. And when that starts to happen, a lot of different things start to happen. So first of all, it becomes easier to last a lot longer because the sexual energy is no longer compressed. It starts to have space. And of course, you can hold a lot more aroused energy with your whole body as in comparison to just a small part of your body. So when this starts to happen, you naturally become able to last a lot longer with ease. And what also happens simultaneously is that when sexual energy is rising up in the body and expanding beyond the lower area of the body, you start to experience different kind of sensations because the sexual energy changes when it rises up into the body. It changes quality, and you start to have different kind of sensations that are usually very blissful and very orgasmic and very energizing and life-giving. And there's no end to the kind of experiences that people describe when they are starting to explore and experiment in this area of allowing the sexual energy to rise up into the body and spreading out into the entire body. And this is also the pathway to separating orgasm and ejaculation and the beginning of experiencing your multi and omni-orgasmic potential as a man, or energy orgasms as we call them as well. So this is something you might have heard about. Quite a lot of people talk about it these days, but this is basically a part of that thing of separating orgasm and ejaculation, because they are not the same thing. But a lot of men have, over time, come to believe that the orgasm always equals ejaculation. But they are two different things. And some of you might remember that you indeed experienced orgasms as a young boy before you even had your first ejaculation. But then as soon as the ejaculations start to happen, they become fused. And most men forget that there were two things and that they can still be experienced separately. You can still experience orgasm without the need to ejaculate. So this brings me back to the reason why we want to do this in the first place, because as many men see it, ejaculation is like the peak. It's where I want to go, and I want my partner to reach to her climax too. But when we start to understand that you can still orgasm, in fact, you can have stronger and more full-bodied orgasmic experiences with your whole body without the need to ejaculate and subsequently end the experience, which is often the case for most, but not all men, often need a refractory period after the ejaculation. But when you don't ejaculate, but you allow your body to experience these higher levels of orgasmic energy without ejaculation, then your energy keeps rising. You're not losing any energy, but you're able to continue to make love for as long as you like, and the energy can keep rising and rising indefinitely. And this is also now very interesting, because if you want to really meet your female partner at her highest capacity, it's so important to know this about female versus male sexual arousal, that by default a man's sexual arousal curve goes something like this: very sharp up to the peak and then down. Yeah, and this can happen very quickly for a lot of men, especially if you struggled with PE. You know that you can get aroused very, very fast, ejaculation happens, and then the energy goes down. But for a woman, it doesn't happen the same way. But a lot of women who have been partnered with men who are not able to last as long as they want, they have come to train themselves, often subconsciously, to get aroused in the same way as their partner so that they will fit in with his rhythm. So whereas women usually and naturally take a longer time to get aroused, most women can train themselves to have a fast clitoral orgasm as well. So that's what a lot of women end up doing, and what the men try to make them experience during sex if you haven't yet been able to extend the lovemaking and develop ejaculation choice. But if you allow a woman to slowly warm up, if you're able to be with her and stay with her as her arousal expands and goes higher and higher, it's like you're jumping on a wave together, like a slowly undulating wave that goes higher and higher and higher and higher. So you're on this undulating wave with your woman, going higher and higher. And because you've learned to be able to continue to make love without the need to ejaculate, you can together keep going higher and higher. And there's no end to where you can go in this way. So this is where we have stories of couples making love for hours. And this is usually not a race in the kind of way that a lot of people have sex when they only do it for a short while, like in the movies, those, wham bam, thank you ma'am sessions that generally are not very fulfilling, especially not for a woman, because in her nature she takes a lot longer than that to warm up. And her highest orgasmic states, they usually happen well into the second hour of lovemaking and will not happen in a few minutes of frantic thrusting. So with those long lovemaking sessions, it's all about the ability to relax the body and allow this aroused energy to spread through the body in a slow and gradual way. So it's not a frantic exercise that a lot of people will say, oh, I wouldn't have the energy to have sex for that long, because you're thinking of the kind of sex that you see in the movies. Yeah, we wouldn't be able to do that for hours. It would be exhausting and it would become numb and it would be boring. But when you're approaching sex and lovemaking from this perspective of very naturally and slowly and gradually allowing the energy to rise, you naturally rising to these higher energy states that are effortless. They are absolutely re-energizing, so that you come out of the lovemaking session with more energy than you started. And our clients have experienced amazing healing through this kind of lovemaking as well, because this is how our bodies can come together and naturally regenerate and rejuvenate together. But it needs time, and it needs your ability to continue sustained lovemaking and to have developed an ejaculation choice. So to conclude this video, it becomes evident that the mainstream approaches to develop ejaculation choice insufficient when it comes to understanding how your body works together with sexual arousal and what happens in the body when you have a premature or an early involuntary ejaculation pattern. So this is why those quick tips and medications, creams, sprays and pills can't solve this, because just like you can't use a cream to become good at soccer, you can't use a cream to become good at lovemaking. But it is a learned skill. It is something that you can learn and train your body to do. But first, in most cases, this involves understanding why this is happening in the first place for you, what it is in your identity belief and your mindset and your thoughts about the situation that is effectively keeping you trapped with this challenge, and what it is in your habits and your approach to sex that makes it difficult or impossible for you to last longer. And also to understand that if you feel disillusioned, or if you've somehow almost lost hope about being able to overcome PE, this is basically an effect of the insufficient information and support of quality that you can find about this. So most men, have been looking online, they've tried the creams and pills and sprays and might have tried some Kegels, but on their own, those methods are usually not enough when it comes to changing this. But it's much more about looking at what is it in your beliefs, your mindset, your identity, and your energy and your emotion that is keeping you stuck with this issue. So your energy and your emotional state affecting, how you use your body, whether emotions happen naturally for you or if you suppress them as a habit, for example. Suppressed emotions, they basically stay suppressed in the abdomen, in that area, and that is going to create a block that makes it very difficult for the sexual energy to rise. So this is why it's so important that we take into account the whole body when you want to shift an issue like premature ejaculation and develop ejaculation choice. So in my program and sessions with men, we work on these things step by step. And just like learning a new language or a sport, it doesn't happen in a day. But when you do apply a little bit of practice every day, success is guaranteed. So thank you for watching this video. Please hit the subscribe button if you haven't yet, and check the show notes for all the links to my content and offers. Okay, see you in the next video. Bye.